Flat revenue.
Now, how did this happen? Tell us about this.
From what I understand, this is, as you see right there, a state program that they do every 2 years, and they basically come in and do their study, the state does, with all their variables, all their equations and stuff like that, and determine that the market value and what was appraised need to match up. And they basically do some adjustments to the personal tax for corporations to get that in line. So we went up in growth about 636,000. I think that was the last estimate I saw. But when you calculate what the discount, as I call it, is you go down about the same amount. So you pretty much have zero revenue, new revenue, coming into the budget for this year. That's basically it's it. I mean, it's a very complicated formula, and it is guided by state law. And I asked the county attorney if we could appeal, where there's no appeal process or anything like that. I don't think it's quite fair. I'll be straight up and honest with you. If you're going to look at the value of all residents and commercial, then everybody should get the benefit of that discount. But they're only giving that to the corporations on their personal. When when you get taxed on your property tax, you have your actual parcel, and then for a business, you have like your conveyor belts or those machines that actually produce your product or your service that gets taxed as well. And that's where the discount is applied.
So basically, we got caught up with an appeal through Vocker this year that caught us. Am I right?
No, Vocker has nothing to do with this.
Didn't have anything to do with it. All right.
Well, we do have what you just said is true. I'm not saying that's not true. It's just that has nothing to do with that.
I know the county commission was planning on some money.
Well, yeah.
Well, you going to give raises to everybody and do all this?
Growth is always something that we take into.
So effectively, there was an unplanned tax cut. Is that a fair statement?
Unplanned tax cut. Well, it's a discount on your tax. There's no doubt about that.
For personal property taxes that corporations and businesses pay.
Yeah, when they get their invoice, it'll say that you only have to pay 87% of what your liability is. So in effect, it is a discount, 13% discount, which equals to about $630,000.
So now, wait a minute. Why did they get is it just this year or every year?
Every 2 years.
It happens every 2 years. It's just this year.
I mean, is it always a discount?
There's always discounts. Just the amount of the discount changes. The last one, I believe, was in 15. And the thing is this question was asked in the Finance Committee, is why didn't we see it then? Well, it happened, but I guess the reason why it is our growth has always been a lot more than what the quote-unquote discount is, so we never really saw it. We never really said, oh, wow.
So does that mean that we actually had less growth than expected in the county over this past year and a half?
Ask the question again.
Does that mean that we had less growth in the county over the last year and a half?
It means
in other places.
It's just unique. Right now, because a lot of people are saying, I see a lot of stuff going on over on Paul Huff. I see stuff going on in South Lee. All over the county. We've also had things come off the books, so to speak. I believe it was Sears over there. Well, they came off the books. The racetrack. So when they come off the books, obviously they don't have the appraisal and tax liability that they had before.
But you'll have an even bigger racetrack go back on this year.
Exactly, but they don't come quote unquote on the books until they get their certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, I think what Franklin's saying, though, is that this happens every 2 years.
You said 2 years ago or whatever that the growth made up for it so that it wasn't an issue.
There was more growth. So if you had growth, let's just use numbers. You had growth that equaled $1,000 and your discount was only $200. So you had $800 of new revenue. So you didn't really care too much about the $200.
Okay, so here's my question.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of revenue, what is the additional revenue year over year, taking this into consideration, do we still have positive revenue growth for that year?
In the past years, we've had positive revenue.
So we're going to have negative growth this year. That $600,000 is going to be less, is going to be more than the actual growth?
If they did not apply this, we would have about $636,000.
Right, but are you still net positive or net negative in
Right
growth?
now we're I think the study that was given to me, we're negative $4,000 in revenue.
Now then,
That's a break-even
let me,
figure.
let me
Yeah,
jump-
statistically.
Essentially, that's
Well, I mean,
break-even.
I will say that if you have this every 2 years, I think what Franklin's getting at is this is not the problem. If this is a regular occurrence every 2 years, and it's I don't know whether 13% is regular or not. Our problem was a loss of growth, not this.
The amount of the discount, I think, is
Bigger
the
this year.
highest. I mean, in
Right.
previous years, it's been in the, I think, the 4 or 5%, and this year it's at 13.
Well, I mean, but you know, I got the numbers from Mike on you all's growth, and it does fluctuate like this, but it's averaged around $1 million. It may be less this year, but it's averaged $1 million, fluctuating up. Sometimes it was 600,000 or 700,000. Sometimes it was 1.2.
And then one year we had a negative back, I think, in
the downturn. Yeah.
Did this not happen? I'm going to go back to this Bakker deal. They went into their tax appraisal and got it reduced.
But that doesn't have anything to do with their personal property taxes.
No,
That's
but
real
the
estate
point is,
taxes.
it all goes into the same pot. So if we're looking at how much we're off this year, you can't avoid looking at the fact that we had a huge withdrawal of money we thought we were going to get.
But I mean, you
They
can't
had
single,
no-
you can't
connected to
single out
this.
any one entity and say they had anything to do with it. I mean, Bakker is totally 100% off.
I know, but man, what I'm talking about is you're talking about this as an incident of reduced revenue, but then you're talking about your total revenue and how much it went down. And the Bakker incident does include how much that total revenue went down.
No, it doesn't.
Did you not lose money on that this year?
We didn't lose any money on Bakker.
I thought you had to pay money back.
No, yeah, we didn't have to pay money back to Bakker.
When do they get their
They just won a
reduction?
lawsuit. I mean, they just won a judgment, didn't they?
Their Board of Equalization appeal.
That was
they,
Tenova, if you're talking about.
Didn't Bakker have one also?
That's still in litigation.
Okay, the Tenova one then.
Okay.
That one then.
Yeah.
That's
So,
fine.
okay, you're talking about Tenova. I thought you were talking about.
Okay,
Yeah,
I understand.
Well, I mean, I guess we
Bakker's
all
still
thought
in
the
the courts.
Bakker was settled as well. So that's
No,
still
Bakker's
hanging out there?
I have not been updated, but last I heard it's still in the courts.
Okay.
But we did have to pay
and-
money back to Tenova.
We did have to pay back money to
Well,
Tenova.
that's a loss. That draws our
absolutely.
revenue down as well.
But that was because they appealed their.
We understand the reason why.
Okay.
That's not what we're saying. We're saying
They
if you're
thought
talking
they were being
about that we have
overtaxed.
a
decrease in
shortfall
revenue.
for the year based upon this equalization, part of that is also the fact
The Tenova.
that we lost that property tax
in
revenue
the
also.
big picture,
Yes.
you're absolutely right. We had to take into account that Tenova, one of our larger tax people or organizations, now has a lower tax liability by $200,000. Yeah.
I probably have a different view of this. I mean, we're looking at this sort of as a negative, and the only way you look at this as a negative is if you're from the perspective of government, big government. If you're from the perspective of the private sector, you look at that as a positive. That's more money that these companies have to hire, to expand, to pay taxes in other fields. You know, in my business, the government comes in all the time and applies new things I've got to do, and it costs me money, and I have to figure out how am I going to make that money up? Am I going to be able to increase my profit to make it up, or am I going to have to cut my expenses? Government ought to have to deal with that too.
I don't disagree with that. All I'm saying is this is a complicated formula. The state comes in, does it, and there's no appeal. Once they say that number, you
Well,
can't
I'm
go back.
shocked that they reduced it because government nearly always tries to get more money. So for me, this is a really pleasant thing that government is actually trying to reduce its impact on business, which in the long run will help government. Because every time we've cut taxes on a federal level, tax revenue collected actually goes up.
Well,
We
that's
expand the economy.
That's a totally different level.
And the problem, Marlon, with discussing this right now, when you all are probably going to vote next week on whether to raise county property taxes or not, it makes it very difficult not to view this as maybe part of the sales pitch for why we have to raise taxes.
No.
Okay. Well, where are we at with that?
I mean, but hopefully that we'll get to that, I guess. But hopefully that explains what you guys were asking about. And I apologize for not being here last week on that. We do have to take that into consideration. I mean, we always have enjoyed growth money as we prepare the budget, and this year we're not going to be able to.
Well, most private businesses, when something like this happens to them, especially in the short term, they don't have the option to say, well, I believe I'll just increase my revenue by X amount. They mostly look and go, where am I going to have to cut to cover this? That's how private businesses have to operate.
Yeah.
Well, what do you see as the biggest budget challenge in the next year?
In the next year, obviously we've got some requests from different departments that we have to look at and determine, one, if we're going to fund them, and if we are going to fund them, how are we going to fund them? So there are a lot of requests.
Is there any request that was a reduction?
Is there
any request that was a reduction from money spent last year?
Well,
I'm trying to think. I go through my list of departments.
You remember seeing any? You go, wow, they reduced the request.
Let's reverse engineer.
Why will you not let me just ask that simple question, Franklin? That's a pretty simple, straightforward question.
Go ahead.
I believe, in fact, Donna Simpson's office had a lower request this year.
Well, you know what? Donna Simpson deserves a lot of praise.
She put a $5 fee on.
Here's
exactly,
well, that's a whole other discussion. That's a whole other discussion.
She's now getting passport money and some other things.
I think the question ought to be, how many departments did not spend all of their allocation last year? And that would be the interesting question.
And that is, so I'll be
that's the reverse engineered side.
That is what's frustrating for me is on the finance committee and working on the budget, is because you don't get to see and answer that question truly until June, because a lot of things happen in June that we're getting just in time as we get ready to budget.
Now, Mylan's being nice. What he's saying is that a lot of times when they have, let's say they have $100,000 left and they got a month to go, they spend that $100,000. Now, let me say this. I talked to Raymond Swafford. Raymond regularly turned money back in at the end of the year with his budget. And that was hard for him because he said, I'm looking at other budgets that don't. And he said, I routinely, and I believe Dinah does the same. So there are departments that have regularly turned unspent money back in. There are other departments that, hey, let's order new computers because if we don't spend this money, we won't get it back next year.
And we watched that. But to answer your question, Franklin, is a lot of things happen in June, and we get that last report and we make adjustments at the end.
But last year, let's use last year as an example. How many departments? And I don't mean this as a criticism, because
it's a good thing.
No, it's not what I'm saying though. The fact, if the answer is no, this department spent all their money, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, but this department handed money back in is a good thing.
Departments last year, and you don't have to identify them, just how many actually didn't spend all of their allocation for the year?
I think there wasn't any department that I can remember, because we went into some fund balance issues last year. So
okay.
I don't think there was anyone, but I don't say they went and
I'm not without knowing the specifics of it. In case that's not a criticism.
What you have is you have budgeted numbers. All right, here's what we've been you've been allocated, or this is the money that's been appropriated to your lines, and then you go about doing your business. You have obviously one-time purchases, and then you have recurring and stuff like that. But that's budgeted money. So at the end of the year, let's say you didn't, gasoline prices went down and you didn't have to spend as much gasoline. We budgeted you $400,000 and you only get $300,000. That doesn't mean necessarily that there's $100,000 there. From a budgeting point of view, yeah.
Why does it not mean? They're not supposed to move money out of line items.
They do.
But they're not. But Tim, let's discuss that. They're not supposed to, are they?
Well, they send over their amendment to move money
after it's already been done. They're supposed to come before the commission when they want to move money and say, I want to move this money.
They send over an amendment, and it goes through finance, and the
Right,
commission move the
but
money over.
they send that amendment over. That's one of the things you're talking about having so much to do in June. They send over in June that, back in December, we moved money from this line item to that, and they are not legally supposed to do that.
That does happen, but I can tell you, in my 4 years here, that has been changing a lot. We've encouraged, especially, and I'll give the schools credit. It used to be that the schools would send over one big amendment package
of things they had already done.
Right about this time of year, of all the things. Now, they have a school board that votes on all their stuff, so they have a legislative body, so to speak, that handles that piece of it. But they would send it over, and we would go through it, and they now periodically send their stuff over throughout the year as they make amendments to theirs.
But every department, let's make sure we're clear on this, is supposed to come before the commission before they move money from one line item to another and say, I'd like to move money from this line item to that line item. And that, I hope it's improving, but it doesn't happen that way all the time.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it is definitely improving.
Getting better.
That is something I'm very glad that a lot of the elected officials work with us on. Sometimes they have an emergency.
Here's what I have a hard. What do you mean work with us on? They're supposed to do it. It's not work with us. We'd appreciate the police officer doesn't go, I'd really appreciate it if you'd work with me on this speed limit.
I get what you're saying conceptually, but, take any elected official, and I don't want to mention too many names, but when we appropriate money into their department or into, quote-unquote, their account, let's say they've got money for travel, and they decided they're not going to do travel, and they've got needs over here in communications. They got a new cell phone or something.
They just come before you and ask.
And they send over an amendment, say we're going to move X amount over here to over here, but they don't necessarily come and wait for that approval
But my point is not that. I don't have a problem with that, Molly. My point is, most of the time, in the past at least, they just move the money. And then in June, the last month, they'd send over a whole stack of things and say, look, we moved all this money around. And then officially, you all vote on it, and then officially, it's all, square. But that's not what was supposed to happen.
What I care about is that the total of their budget, like the bottom line number, they don't go over that.
Yeah, but here, wait a minute. Let's talk about that for a minute, because here's the problem with that, Mylan. They give you line items in order to justify the total. So if they give you a line item that doesn't really exist, and you put money in that line item, and then they're able to move it and spend it on other things, the public has no way of knowing what they're actually doing. So the very idea that we kind of go, well, as long as they hit their total.
Well, I
you follow what
I misspoke, John. I do care about those lines. I do care about that. If we put $400,000 in your gasoline, that money went in there, and if you didn't have to spend it and you needed another needs, that's where I'm saying the communication comes into the piece. I just want you to know that, I do care about the bottom line as well. I've been one of the ones, I wouldn't call myself a hawk on it.
Oh, I agree.
I look at the lines. I was talking to an elected official last night, and I was like, how is it that on this particular line, I see a purchase from a retailer that has nothing to do with what that line is?
I agree.
And
well, let me say,
they gave their Cleveland Utilities. They had an employee steal a lot of money from them this year. They didn't know about.
Well, let me comment on something though. I just noticed kind of off to the side that Franklin was doing when we were talking. No, it's not a bad thing, but we're doing it on a national level as too. We were talking about who turns it in, and Franklin went out of his way to apologize by basically saying, now, I'm not criticizing anybody that doesn't. Think about that for a minute. If you're able to conserve and you save money and you turn it back in, that should uniformly be a good thing. We shouldn't have to be apologizing. We're doing that in all kinds of forms. If you do really good, I can't brag on you for doing really good.
That's not true at all. That's not what I said.
Listen, Franklin, what you said is, this is not a criticism if you didn't.
No, I'm saying without knowing the details, it's not a criticism.
No, my point is...
I'm not going to just criticize people without getting the facts.
You're missing my point. It's not a criticism.
I'm not John
There's
Stanberry.
only one side of this, and the side is if you didn't spend all your money and you turned it back in, that is a good thing. You should be complimented for, and we shouldn't even discuss the people that didn't.
Somebody is different from criticizing.
I think we ought to use the money turned in to be a bonus.
Well, actually,
that's not used.
Mylan can probably talk about this. There is a problem in all four levels of government with that. and I criticize people that said, "Oh, it's June, we need to spend all of this." But I will say this: there have been problems in the past where if you turn money back in, and not this commission, but commissions or the governing body would go, "Okay, we'll just cut your budget next year by that much."
And that's one of the things that we want to look at and be careful of, is because if you go and you penalize, so to speak, somebody who is conservative and you quote unquote take that money away, it all goes back to the justification of why they needed that amount in the
Which is
first place.
why the line items are important.
Right.
And not allowing them to just shift money around.
And John, I can tell you, tomorrow morning, the Finance Committee goes over every single line. This right here is...
What would zero-based budgeting do for y'all? What would the 1981 Financial Management Act do for
totally
y'all?
two different things, but...
It would change this. The 1981 would change all of this.
We tomorrow morning, the Finance Committee will go over every single line in this budget and justify. Now,
163 million, by the way, is the new budget, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And how much was the budget last year?
Well, it didn't go up.
Well, yeah, about the same, I think. Yeah.
What's the?
But when you say 163 million, you're also talking about a lot of other money
stuff
coming in that has to go through our books. I mean, grants and stuff like that.
What
And
what
fees.
portion of the 163 million is the school budget?
I'm sorry?
What portion of the 163 is the school budget?
I believe they are about 75 to 76, 77 million.
So 40% roughly.
Yeah, they're the largest part of the budget, clearly.
I want to say this too.
But a large portion of their money comes from the state.
Several years ago, when Lisa was Education Committee Chairman,
Yeah.
they put in place they made basically a pitch to the school board and said, look, if you can save money off of your projects or any of this, we will allow you to keep it. You can put it in a capital fund, you can build that money up, and you can use that to spend it on whatever you want to build. That's what the Fine Arts Building at Bradley was built with, as I understand it, savings that the school system was able to come up with through their programs. And the commission said expressly, we're not going to, take that in mind. We're not going to cut your budget. I understand the school board has voted to do away with that fund at this point, or move it.
There's a lot of what you said is true, but it needs to be clarified. We cannot cut their budget.
No, I know that.
Right.
No,
So
ever.
when the same amount.
But my point is, you could accommodate it in an increase.
The same amount that we gave them last year is
They
the same
always
amount.
get it.
Right. They have to get that or more. So it's the maintenance of effort that you've heard about.
I'm just disappointed that the school board has, from what I understand, transferred that money out.
What they do with their money after they've got obviously their operations and stuff like that. If they choose to save any money, that's on them.
But that doesn't necessarily.
They do have a fund balance requirement.
That's not exactly correct though, because you do have allocations for special capital projects, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't recur
We just
year after
recently,
year.
I guess, well, not
No,
recently.
but what he's getting at is by state law.
No, I
I've
know
said
what
this
that-
over and over, that you cannot cut.
But I'm
their
saying
funding.
if they give them $12 million this year to build something, they don't get that $12 million
That's not
again the
recurring
next year.
fund.
That's not recurring.
Right, but that doesn't go into their budget.
Right.
Their budget, and you hear me often say their budget is called 141, Fund 141. Once we put a number to 141, it cannot go down.
Sure.
When we go into like Lake Forest is our last one, I guess. When we go to spend money or go in debt, that comes out of another fund called 151, the fund balance. So because they can't, 141 is not allowed to go in debt. They can't pay interest on a loan or a
Out
bond.
of that. Do you have any idea what they think their projections for growth of students is?
I do not know.
Well, here's what I'm
I
asking.
know that the average daily attendance, because that concerns us on
Right.
that, is
funding level.
that the student population in the county is up, and the city is, but it's a proportion. It's not. I mean, the total number of students could have gone up, but the proportion between the city and the county,
can
I think,
change.
is
well,
the city's down.
but what is their number? Their numbers are going up in enrollment.
I'll have to get that back to you.
I'm certain that it's going.
Well, here's my question then. 12.7 million for a Pi Center. When's the next school?
12.1.
When's the next? Well, actually, it's 18. If we're really going to be honest about this, they're going to have to pay the city.
Well,
My point is, if you're going to spend that, that's a school. That's almost
that is
that's a
absolutely
junior
right.
high.
I agree 100%.
So when's the next school building going to need to be built?
I've been told that we can anticipate in the next 5 years a request for a new school.
Well, I mean, then you know what? That puts that much more stress on the fact that the Pi Center I'm not sure I'm not sure it's the priority to raise taxes for this year.
And that's a
I
great
have a
opinion to
question.
have.
I have a question. The new school you're talking about,
I mean,
I've heard there's going to be a new Ocoee Middle School built at some point in time. It's gotta happen.
all I was told is that you can anticipate a request in the next 5. We've asked for their long range plan. I mean, long range, and a school is within 5 years is going to be requested.
Well, that's if it's an elementary school, it's another 13 or 14.
Right.
If it's a junior high or high, it's 20 or 25 million.
But we all have a school board representative that we can ask those questions to. I mean, they have more information about that than I do. I just get their request.
But you're the one next week that's going to vote on whether you raise our taxes or not.
It's not next week, but yes, you're right. I'm one of 14 that will vote on that.
Well, I'm glad it's not next week. Everybody out there that doesn't want their taxes raised, start calling the commissioners.
Now, I want to read this right out of the Cleveland Daily Banner, that Bradley County currently has enough money to do improvements requested for North Lee and Black Fox schools without a tax increase, according to John Stenberry.
Well, that's also according to Mayor Davis and several commissioners that I've talked to.
Well, actually, Mayor Davis's budget came in, and he didn't have any tax increase included in it, correct?
He does not.
So the commissioners, if they go by the budget, everything will be fine. But if they want,
Well,
But
that assumes that the numbers in the proposed budget are accurate, right?
Well, and
I mean-
what request did he deny? And that's what we'll go over with tomorrow.
And that's a fair point.
Well, look, the Pie Center has over $2 million. Governor Lee amazingly gave them $1 million this year. They had a meeting with him. Now, I will tell you, the meeting with Governor Lee, and I'm impressed with this, he said, how many people do you have signed up? Well, they don't really have anybody in any kind of inked contract. And he said, well, how much, now this is his words, how much skin in the game does the local industry have? And when they said none, he pushed back and said, you got to have skin in the game.
let me ask this question, and I did development for a while, and I understand that pretty well. Why is the Pie Center over there is going to be a center that's going to be that the county's going to spend all the money on the construction and make it happen
When I
for
keep in mind
somebody
they
else?
weren't originally.
No, wait a minute. Why can a vendor not come in and spend their own money in there and give them free rent for a year or two or something for the money they cost getting it ready to work out of?
Well, that's what's happening. The money that has been requested of us is just to get, quote unquote, the foundation pieces of it.
Well, 12. You could build that building for $12 million.
No, you could not.
Well, in a warm dark
cannot
shell,
build
it's just a
that for
warm dark
$12
shell.
million.
It's just a warehouse.
And I'm not in the construction business, and I've been made aware of that. But I know Lake Forest, that was $18 million. And
here's what I'm worried about.
and
I'm
this
worried
building's a
about
lot
that you
bigger
all
than
have
that.
bought a building and you're on the hook now, and we're struggling to try and make this thing work. And sometimes if you're in a hole, you just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper. And there's a time to just say, maybe this was a screw up, and we're now the owners of a building that nobody could sell for years.
And I want to say, John has always been for the Pie Center.
The concept's great, but here's the problem. The one down in Georgia, and I've talked to people locally about the Pie Center that are in charge with the school system. They said, well, one of the problems down there in Georgia was they had a big company in there, and they at some point pulled out. And isn't that bad? And I looked at it and go, well, no, not really, because the system down there didn't build that. The company built that. So, yeah, it's bad that they pulled out and the kids don't have that opportunity, I guess, but the taxpayer's not on the hook down there. Up here, if we spend $12 million and we, A, don't get enough people in it, or B, someone pulls out, we're screwed. We're sitting here with a big old empty building.
And I've asked the school board to identify that risk, because that's what you just did, was you identified that risk. Is that if that happens, what's your corrective action in order to make sure?
There is none, Mike.
There is.
You have to try to recruit somebody else. We're struggling to recruit enough to begin with.
Let me say something. You don't have a deal until there's a piece of paper that becomes a legal contract of some kind, letter of intent or something. And
Well, they're saying they have some letter of intent, but
you know what?
there's no money on what Governor Lee was asking is what money is the company going to put into it? And we keep being told they're going to build their part out.
They're going to spend their capital on their build out for their part of the building.
Well, Marlon, I told you earlier, I've been told that apparently some of these, I have no problem with someone like the Wright brothers running a program in there to train people that they're going to hire, but apparently they're also going to have businesses that are actually functioning and operating out of this business. I have a real problem with that. Government should not be competing with private sector. So if I'm a guy out here and I've got a strip mall with empty places in it, how am I going to feel when my own tax dollars, my increased tax dollars, are spent to compete with me?
Well, that's kind of what Cleveland State does with their incubator system out there.
And the problem with the incubator is, that's another problem there. We already have an incubator. We've got duplications of some of these things.
The difference there is that it's supposed to, I don't know if it's always working the way, it's supposed to be a temporary startup, and then they're supposed to move out. I'm not sure that's always happening.
It's not happening.
It's not happening, but that's a whole different discussion. But that's also another reason that part of this pie is already being taken care of by Cleveland State.
I want to make sure we say something else. I know we're supposed to break here. I want to salute Commissioner Blake for coming here today. He's always been willing to provide information when we need it here, and showed up and asked some really difficult and tough questions.
No, let me say this. Chairman of the Finance Committee is probably the most difficult, most time-consuming position a commissioner can have.
So,
Alan, you do a good job. We know it.
And I really do appreciate you coming in and withstanding the barrage.
And don't raise my taxes.
I won't do just you, right?
Don't raise anyone's taxes. Learn to live in a budget.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you very much.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Another SOS, and you're stressing, and that's the time to check in and check into cash.
It's that time again. Are you more back to school or back to bills? When you need extra cash, text the word quote to 55670 for a free, no-obligation quote. Learn how much cash you can pre-qualify for. That's quote to 55670. Get pre-qualified today.
Your one-stop money shop, check into cash.
Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. That's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Keith Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Gonna jump in. Woo! Attention, Cleveland area creditors. Are you tired of dealing with debtors that owe you money? I'm Jeff Renfro, and I've owned and operated Financial Recovery, a debt recovery specialist here in my hometown of Cleveland for 18 years. We're a licensed and bonded Tennessee collection agency working for a wide variety of creditors from commercial, manufacturing, physicians, dentists, attorneys, small business owners to individuals. Look, any kind of business dealing with billing, charge accounts, or even return checks. I know your past due accounts are not a top priority for you, but they would be to me. Let me try to make it easy for you to make a change in the way you've been handling your accounts. There's no contract and no cost to you in most cases, as our fee of only 30% can be added to the balance owed to you. So, whether you have hundreds of accounts monthly and need help with your billing and collection, or you're just an individual and somebody owes you money, let me help you. Give me a call at 400-5376 and I'll come by and see you. That's 400-5376.
Financial Recovery, a licensed and bonded collection agency in Cleveland, Tennessee, 400-5376.
We're here at the Trane Heating and Air Conditioning Testing Facility to see how unstoppable their products really are.
Inside this climate chamber, it's raining incredibly hard on this Trane AC unit. Clearly, it's hard to stop the train.
Ready for a heating and air unit that's been tested in the harshest environments possible? Stop thinking about the other guys and get a Trane. Call Mechanical Systems today to get your home on the road to comfort. 336-5739.
Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right. Every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
And we're back. We're back with another great edition of Backfire with Franklin Chancellor and John Steinberg. Well, John, I tell you what, you've done all you can do to keep the stacks from growing
Well,
anymore.
they've got money. What I was getting at is they've got over $2 million. They've got enough money for phase one. They can continue this year to percolate along. I've been told, and there are, to be honest, Lisa and Dan Rawls and some people have been working on some things. There are ways to fund this without a tax increase if they give it a year or two, and they've got money to get through a year or two.
Well,
so this can be done without a tax increase. Now, that doesn't change the fact that I have some grave concerns about how it is coming together. And what, keep in mind, there's going to be another bus route. That's another thing we haven't talked about. They're going to take these kids, like, for example, to Walker Valley. Then they're going to bus them over to the Pie Center, and then after they're finished working, they're going to bus them somewhere else. Maybe a drop-off center. Obviously they don't want to run a full route again, but that's a third bus route that you're adding an expense, and that's an ongoing year-to-year expense, not a capital expense. Plus the whole idea that the traffic in that area is tremendous already.
I've got, I want to change the subject now. I've got my Polk County newspaper that just came in, and one of the things I was reading in, I learned a lot from the Polk County newspaper. I'm getting more and more from it, but new sanitation bids may buy time for dumps. And that's what they're talking about. But one of the things I'm reading here is that the price has gone up for Polk County to get rid of their garbage, and it's going to cost them several $100,000 more money. And it's an increase of $200,000 a year for just for 6 sites they have there to dump. And their disposal rate is $18 a ton on all sites.
What's ours?
Well, here's what I'm getting at. When I was reading this article, 4 sites are operated by Santec Industry and take trash to the landfill in Cleveland.
None of our trash goes in Bradley County landfill.
None of our Bradley County trash goes.
And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, because we talked about this Monday at the Polk County,
That's not accurate.
our trash is not hauled there.
Well, our county residents go and dump things there.
Yes, what I mean is the contract trash. But I think our rate's $44 or $40-something.
Theirs is $18 a ton, and they have
Bradley County pays more than all the surrounding counties.
Well, they have haul rates. I don't know if the haul rate. Here's one haul rate's $265 per haul.
Yeah, but that's the company hauling.
Right.
The $18 is the company paid to the landfill. Bradley County pays more than all of the surrounding counties to dump in our own landfill.
I don't know, but why are we taking garbage from any other county?
We're taking garbage
I know
from
it, but why
multiple-
do we do that?
I don't know.
Well, if you'll look out here, we now have developed the largest mountain
point
in Bradley County. I'm telling you, when you're coming from Chattanooga now, you can look for...
And, well, you can smell the methane. Which we tried to talk 10 years ago about mining that methane. There are communities that actually converted their municipal cars and trucks to methane. Yeah. And they mined the methane off of the landfill and used that to power their vehicles.
Well, I think
now, I think Syntec is actually looking at mining it now, but it's because the residents are furious about the smell.
How can we find out what we pay a ton?
Milan could have told you.
Oh, Milan, I wish we'd
But we pay significantly more than the surrounding communities.
Well, right there is $18 a ton, and it's being brought to our landfill.
Well, now, let me tell you something. Monday, again, Republican Party meeting, they were discussing, we had a county commissioner present from up there. Their student population is decreasing in Polk County. The government has over, I think they said over 60% of the property. So when we're sitting here talking about, oh, we had a little blip and drop down in our revenue, Polk County's sitting up there with over half of their property off the tax rolls.
Well, you know what their biggest industry up there is, don't you? Agriculture.
You're talking about marijuana?
No, agriculture.
Agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Probably marijuana. I don't know.
What there is a minimum fee of $24. If the amount you bring is more than a ton, it's $48. So in other words, it's $24 for the first ton, and then if you go over that, it's $24 more.
But they raised the rate on Bradley County while they actually lowered the rate on some surrounding counties this past year, as I understand it. If I'm wrong, somebody call in and tell me.
$18 a ton is what Polk County is talking.
Well, Polk County, some of the residents up there were talking, they don't pay a fee personally, and some of the people were saying, look, I'd pay, how much would it be, to pay personally to have it hauled off? So they're trying to work on it, but my point is, you got over half of your property off the tax rolls, you have a real problem. We're very blessed in Bradley County to have the kind of revenue we have.
Well, anyway, I thought that got my attention. I think we ought to look into the garbage situation.
Let me discuss something Franklin had brought up multiple times. Amazon not paying any taxes.
Yeah.
So I knew there were reasons for that. I just had to.
Of course, there are reasons.
Now, let me read it to you. Let me read you what the reasons are. One of these stories is from Vox, which is actually a very liberal paper. The other one is from an economic magazine. But they paid no taxes that year because of basically three components in the tax law. Amazon is the #1 company in the country for investment in research and development.
Right.
And so our tax law says, we want you to do research and development, so we will give you 100% write-off for research and development. They spent $22.6 billion on research and development. Second was Alphabet at $16.6 billion. So they were #1, almost doubling or 50% over the second one. The second thing is the investment in property, plant, and equipment. Over the last 5 years, they have increased that investment to $60 billion by the end of last year. Now, that's all money that generates local taxes. It generates all kinds of property tax. Now, none of this takes into effect what they pay their employees, and all of that money is taxed. But the biggest part of this is employee stock compensation. And Franklin, I think you'll be pleased to know that is courtesy of Bill Clinton and the Democrats. In 1993, they looked and said, well, we're upset that CEOs are being paid so much money and that it's obscene. You know how Democrats play we're going to pit the class warfare card. And so they said, we're going to tax any CEO compensation over $1 million a year. And so that would not be any write-off to the company at all, any payment over $1 million. But we won't tax stock compensation because they actually like it. For example, Obama's White House economic advisor, Jason Furman, thinks it's a good thing. So that was written in. So what they've done is they now pay employees and they pay the CEOs stock. And they say, well, we're going to give you, let's say they give the $1 million, and then we're going to give you 1,000 shares. Well, that's not taxed. It becomes a direct write-off. So the real big problem is, hang on, and then you can jump in. Amazon was extremely successful this last year. So as your success grows, your stock value goes up. As your stock value goes up, your deduction goes up. So the reason they paid no taxes is because Bill Clinton and the Democrats allowed them to write off stock payments in lieu of money. And because their value went up so much, their deduction increased. That's why they didn't pay taxes.
First of all, you're right, John, that started under the Clinton administration.
It was passed by Democrats.
Number two, though, there was a complete tax overhaul that just passed by the Trump administration, which did not address
Franklin,
that.
I'm not against it.
I let you talk, didn't I? I let you talk, didn't I?
Well, I wasn't criticizing it.
I let you talk. Number three, in 2017, Amazon's profits were $5.6 billion. In 2018, they were $11.2 billion. Their profits doubled, and they paid no federal taxes.
Great.
So, no, let me finish.
Well, okay.
I don't care who did the tax plan. It's wrong.
It's not wrong.
It is wrong.
All right. So, what did you read me again? What was their profit in 2017? Read me
5.6 billion.
All right. In 2017, you said, right? In 2017, they invested $22.6 billion that year alone in research and development. That is all a direct write-off because we want companies investing in research and development.
After their R&D expenditures, they had that profit.
Franklin, the R&D expenditures come directly off their tax liability.
No. It was all, that's profit, John.
Franklin,
they should pay something on their profit.
Franklin, you all are going to kill the economic system if you don't quit this class warfare.
American corporations paid taxes for 150 years.
The economy grew at 3.1% this past quarter.
It grew a lot bigger than that when they were paying taxes.
The estimate was going to be 0.2% this year, and the Trump economy, because of tax cuts, grew at 3.1%.
The corporate tax rate was a lot higher than that in the 60s, and American corporations were making incredible profits.
They paid almost no taxes, Franklin. I brought that into you before. They because the rate was high, you're right, but the actual payment was much lower because they avoided it. They moved it offshore. You all are
there is no way to
the
morally
Democratic Party has become
$11.2 billion in profits and zero
actually
taxes.
There is. You're arguing now. You're arguing now with Obama's chief economic advisor.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. I just read you his quote. He supports these programs.
He doesn't support them going
Your
tax
party
free.
has become economically illiterate, and you're going to kill the economy.
I can do simple math.
What we ought to do is tax more and then give away more, right?
That's the way the Democrat Party...
I mean, we finally got unemployment down. That's the big deal, isn't it?
Sure.
Well, is that not a tax benefit to us?
A tax benefit?
Yeah. We're not having to pay them to not work anymore.
Okay.
So they've got jobs.
Okay.
So that development that they've done has been spent to hire new people, right? So that's, I mean, is that not the way the system works, John?
Okay.
I mean, does the system not work that way?
Well, by God, let's not pay any taxes.
No,
then.
that's fine.
No. Let's not pay any taxes. You don't pay any, John doesn't pay any, because by God, somehow it's going to magically rain down.
First off, this is...
Come on.
No, wait a minute. Franklin, if
what a crap that you are passing the buck.
No, Franklin. If I get
here's it. You're paying it. You're paying it because Amazon's not. John's paying it because Amazon's not. I'm paying it because Amazon's not. Apparently, you think that's fair.
No, I think jobs pay it. People pay taxes, Franklin. People pay taxes. Companies.
Yes, that's right. The people and their taxes are higher because those corporations aren't getting their tax bill.
Franklin, you're yelling.
And you all said they were going to move all these profits back to America, and they didn't.
Franklin, you're yelling.
All they did was buy back stock.
Well, let's talk about the tariffs then.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
All
That's
right, hang on
another
a minute.
tax
No,
on
wait a minute.
us.
Let me
By the way, that's an average.
let me
that's an
fix
$800
Franklin's.
tax
Let me
increase
fix
on you.
some of your economic illiteracy. Okay, in 2017, all right, when you
Magic
account,
Republican math
if you want to
coming.
listen for a second, you might learn something. In 2017, when you account for local, state, and international taxes, Amazon paid almost $1 billion in taxes. In 2018, it jumped to $1.18 billion in taxes. That's the problem here, Franklin. You all are cherry picking in order to sell your socialist agenda. I'm telling you, they pay billions in taxes. You pulled out one line item, the federal income tax, and they don't pay that.
Item?
They don't pay that.
Zero, John.
Franklin.
Do you pay local taxes?
I hate to break
do
it
you
to
pay
you.
state taxes? And do you pay federal
The
taxes?
public benefits from research and development. The public
Of course they do,
benefits
John,
from
but
investment
there's
in
not a
plants.
shred of evidence to back up what you
We're
just
not
said.
paying
Well,
as
you know
much
what,
unemployment.
Franklin? Guess what? Let me put it local
The
for you.
largest
All right,
We're not
corporation.
paying for as much food stamps.
Hang on a minute, Franklin. Let's put it to you on a local level. Folks, if you got a job at the Amazon plant in Charleston, Franklin would like you to not have that job because that entire capital outlay was deductible on their federal income tax. So thanks to Franklin's ways, if we go the way the Democratic Party wants to go, you won't have buildings like the one you all are employed in. That was a deduction.
I tell you
Franklin.
what,
Are you
folks,
against,
if you can,
were you against that
if
deduction?
you can, I'm against them
So
being
you were
tax-free.
against them
Yes,
getting a
I'm
deduction to
against
build a
them being
plant in Charleston.
tax-free.
Well, guess
That's
what,
right.
folks? You wouldn't have a job in Charleston right now.
First of all, that's a crock
It is
too.
not a
That
crock.
is the business they're
It
in.
is not a crock, Franklin. That's the reason they
You're
built
also
for.
paying for their expansions into other countries. Oh, how about that
Actually,
one, John? That's part of their research
Actually,
and development.
Franklin, almost the entirety of their business is in United States and Germany. Germany's the only other country that they have any significant investment in. I'm sorry the facts get in your way. It's almost entirely
John,
U.S.
you are
companies.
the greatest indictment of the public education system I've ever seen.
Because I understand
Because you
things.
can't do math.
Franklin, what part of
Jeez.
deductions for
Their
investment?
profits doubled, and they paid nothing.
They doubled their investments.
Nothing.
They're the largest.
You can't justify
Franklin, they're the
nothing.
largest investor in research and development in the country. The largest. That's
Okay.
a good thing. That's
And
a
they're
good thing.
expanding
That's
rapidly.
More
they do
jobs.
all
that
over the world.
because of the tax benefits they get. See, Franklin
And you're
thinks
the
that
very
the government.
person who comes in here when the government provided tax benefits to alternative energy companies and said it was immoral.
They gave money to them, Franklin. They actually gave money
They
to them.
didn't. They provided tax
No, they
credits.
didn't. They actually
Tax
gave,
credits.
They actually
That you were
gave money
against.
to them.
You can't, John.
Franklin,
There is no issue
They
you can't be on
actually
both sides
gave
of.
money to the companies. They gave money to them, Franklin. This is Amazon's money. We let them keep. There's a difference. Y'all never
Sunshine,
understand
John,
that.
are you pro or against
y'all
it? Wait,
never
you're both.
understand that. There's a difference between
Right.
letting someone
For and against
keep
it,
their own
both.
money.
We could hire some more
Toilet
people.
paper. I'm for it, but I'm against it.
Hey, we could hire some more people and put them over to the Social Security office, couldn't we?
Yeah, because that's run so
There,
well.
there is no issue. He's not on both sides of it
Franklin,
at all times.
Obama actually gave them money. That's the difference. He gave taxpayer money to those solar companies.
How about that 150? How much was it he gave to Iran?
159
Billion or
Their own money.
Well,
Their
as far as
own
I'm concerned,
money.
they forfeited.
None of our
As
money.
far
Well,
as
let me
I'm concerned,
put
they
it. Let me put it
forfeited.
to you this way.
None of
Frank.
our money.
Let me put it to you another way.
So Franklin's
That-
more
wait.
protective of the Iranians' money than
No,
it
I'm
is
more
the U.S.
protective of
citizens'
ours.
money.
What about those Trump tariffs? The $800 a person tax increase he's put on us this
Well,
year
when they
with
come
his
to heal,
tariffs.
when they bring these companies, Mexico's already coming to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing. Trump's doing a great
Sure they
job,
are.
Franklin. I'll tell you what. Can you imagine how good a job he'd do if he didn't have Democrats to deal with?
Oh, because he's on his way to his dictatorship now.
His dictatorship.
He's set a record for executive orders in 2 years, hasn't he? And you criticized Obama for it. But wait, you're on both sides of that issue.
Well, wait a
aren't
minute.
you?
Wait a minute. What has Congress done?
I don't particularly like.
What has Congress done?
The Democratic Congress has passed about 97 major bills this year. The Republicans have done nothing.
Just like the Republican
Absolutely
House did when
nothing.
the Democrats had the Senate. Same thing.
The Senate has
Franklin-
passed. No, you had the Senate then too.
No, we didn't
They
actually.
passed nothing.
What's all
I
this
don't
yelling
like
about?
executive orders particularly. But my comment when Obama
But
was
when
doing
it's yours,
it, Franklin, my comment when Obama was doing it was not so much that I was opposed to the executive orders. My
Yes,
comment was an executive order can be undone.
Yes, what you said was
I don't like
the
that order.
You said the dictator Obama could do it.
No,
the
I
king
said
Obama could
that it
do
would all be
What-
undone.
both
Over and over
sides of
again, I
this
said
issue-
that it would be undone.
Let me ask you something. Who are you going to impeach next? Who's the next person y'all want to impeach? Where's the
I don't
beef?
impeach anybody.
Well, y'all want to do Barr now. You want to impeach Barr? You want to impeach
Well,
Trump?
if he refuses to show up for a subpoena,
Actually,
that's a problem.
Here's the vote. Here's the vote.
That is a
they're,
problem.
They're voting to hold Barr in contempt because he is refusing to violate a federal law. They literally,
No,
yes,
they're
they are,
not.
Franklin.
He refused to show up.
But that's not what
You
the
can't
contempt
do
vote.
that. He
Franklin,
was there.
That's not what the contempt vote is. The contempt vote is because he won't release the
The
completely.
president
Answer me
instructed
this.
former
Are you-
employees
are
of
you-
the administration
Franklin,
to not show
That's
up.
not what the contempt vote's for. The Barr contempt vote is because he won't release the fully redacted report. Are you for or against protecting grand jury information? Yes or no?
I'm for the Congress addressing the legality of it, which they can
Is
do
it-
by
would
statute.
it
Wait a
be-
minute, what
but
are they
have they?
investigating?
Which they can do
What
by
are they-
Franklin,
what
have
are they
they?
investigating? What are they investigating,
Nothing.
Franklin?
By the way, Robert,
Primarily the obstruction of the
Franklin.
interference in our election.
Franklin,
All right.
what are they
no, they're
investigating?
not.
There
They're not
hasn't been anything
investigating
found.
that. They're
He's
investigating the
innocent.
Trump administration.
That's all right.
Enough's
By the way,
enough.
Robert
Let's get
Mueller
over it.
in the
Yeah,
report.
you had his son-in-law this week giving an interview saying he's not sure if he would take the Russians' help again next year in the election. Really?
He
You
said
people are crazy.
Robert
you
Mueller
have lost your
in the
mind.
Mueller report took a privileged phone call between Michael Flynn's lawyer and between President Trump's lawyer. And in a 440-plus page report, he thought it was important to edit 2 sentences out of the middle of the transcript of that phone call. Both sentences were exculpatory. Both sentences had Trump's lawyer actually saying, I don't want you to do anything you shouldn't do. 2 sentences. Why, well, Franklin, answer me this. Why would you put a transcript of a phone call in the Mueller report and edit 2 sentences out of the very middle of the conversation?
I don't know. You'd have to ask
Mueller.
But
And that's why he
but
w't
have
testify.
But he'd have to testify.
That's why
wouldn't he?
he's.
Well,
he
the
doesn't
Democrats want him to testify.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
Are they slapping him with a subpoena?
They will eventually.
No, they won't,
Yeah, they
because they're afraid he'll have to answer that question.
But
All right,
you understand
all right.
the Justice Department has told him he can't testify.
I want to say one thing. We've got to go. We're running late. Iran cannot compete with the United States since Donald Trump has done to them what he's done.
Compete with us on what?
Well,
What were
right
they competing
now,
with us
well,
on?
right now, last time we had a problem with Iran, our gas prices went to gas went to $150 a
That's
barrel.
because of President Trump's
President
energy
Trump,
independence.
right now, Iran, they're raising cane and they can't do anything about it.
We're
But
a
our
net-
gas is at $54
we're
a
a
barrel.
net exporter of gas now.
That's right.
We were
We're
before
making
Trump
money.
came into office too, weren't we?
Hey, bring on the tariffs.
Weren't we,
Bring
John?
on the tariffs.
Weren't we, John?
Because of private land
Weren't
development.
we,
You're
John?
right. Yes, because
Who
of
was the
private
president
land.
when that happened, John?
Obama. But it
Okay,
happened,
thank
and
you.
we
You heard
argued
it right
this.
there.
Franklin, we argued this. It happened in spite of him, not because of him.
Shut up about politics. Ain't nothing but a big pile of dirty tricks. I'm tired of all the fighting and a bitching fit. So shut up about politics. You punch left, I punch right.